we go to same canteen, and it's a very, very free, democratic space. So students, and it is favorite pastime of a student to discuss their teacher, that who are the boring teachers. So no, it enters into our ear also. A good teacher has to know, we know that sometimes students are tired, students have already attended some class, no, and it is, no, it's like you. So I have to give just one lecture, but you are here right from the morning. And today may be last day or 30th is the last date. So for you, it's a continuous activity. After some time, it becomes a monotonous exercise. Acha, ek class all you hona hai. Teacher has to be mindful of all that. But unless we know psychology of our students, the mindset of our student, no? And so this is one way that you should go to students' canteen, if it is possible in your institute, and try to overhear without scaring them what they are talking. No? And so you can overcome those limitations. No, what students do not like. So first thing is that our voice should not be dull. If our voice is dull, naturally message will not go to the last row. Second, that a dull voice becomes very, very uninteresting, and students who come to class without any interest gets convinced that this is really uninteresting, because no, a dull voice cannot arouse interest among the students. So we have to work on. So whenever we want to become a teacher, I know that our voice is given to us by nature, by God, but no, with some amount, those who go for acting, in a drama school or film institute, no, they are given instruction, explicit instruction to work on their voice modulation. So a teacher, apart from being a knowledgeable person, has to be a partial actor also. No? So being actor is not, because teaching is like a performance. No? Having knowledge is one thing, but are you able to perform as a teacher? No? Performance part, performativity. And this performativity is not taught in any university. In fact, and some of you will not like this comment, because I'm from social science and you are from science. So among scientists, there is this notion that we have to be a very serious person. We have to be very logical. We have to be very rational. And there is a dichotomy in the Western world, and from there we have learned that in fact there is a dichotomy between cognition and emotion. So what is cognition? The mental work. So a scientist, what is the dominant image of a scientist? A scientist is very brainy. Scientist is very logical. Scientist is very rational, which implies that a scientist should not be emotional, because there is a kind of antagonism between cognition and emotion. So if you become emotional, then you are not a scientist. And there is a stereotype. I'm saying stereotype. I hope you understand meaning of stereotype. That it is a generalized, false generalization about a group. So in Western society and in our society also, this stereotype is there that women are very emotional. Women are very emotional, which means they are less rational, and it is wrong, I'm saying. And I will tell you. Women are emotional, and that's why they are less rational. And because of that, only in recent time, change has started taking place. You'll see that at +2 level and a class 10 level in CBSE exam, it is girls who outperform boys. +2 level also, girls outperform boys. If you go to Delhi University and attend convocation, you will find 70% toppers are girls, 30% are boys. But when it comes to reaching at the top level, how many women vice chancellors are there? I said recent years though. So currently in Jamia Millia Islamia and in JU, my university, it's lady vice chancellor. Very recent, but before that, we have all the time male occupying the higher position. Director, chairman, vice chancellor. It is because of this stereotype that women are very emotional and they cannot take rational decisions. Whereas a job of vice chancellor requires to be very rational. Is it true? In mind, in human brain, I think, although conventionally it is said that there is limbic system in the brain and that supports our emotional process. And we have prefrontal cortex that supports our cognition. But this division between prefrontal cortex and limbic system, it is very superficial. In fact, brain functions in totality. And emotion and cognition, they work in tandem. In fact, now some of the findings, and I will share the detail of it, we suggest that our cognitive functioning gets affected if we are not sufficiently emotional. So what I am suggesting that there is no antagonism between cognition and emotion. On the contrary, there is a complementary relationship between human cognition and emotion. They support each other. And let me share with you a research finding of one of the world's leading scientists. His name is Antonio Damasio. He is one of the leading neuropsychologists of the world. So once a patient was brought to him who met with an accident. And because of accident, a part of brain got damaged. And I was talking about limbic system and which supports our emotion. So limbic system got damaged. This person was working as a CEO in some top organization. And his academic record suggested that he was topper of his batch throughout. So having very high intellectual capacity, which we express or measure in terms of IQ, you all know, intelligence quotient. So this person's intelligence quotient was very high. So anybody's intelligence quotient, if it exceeds 120, we call it exceptionally bright person. So this person was very, very bright. But after this accident, he was treated by doctor and he became well. He joined back his duty. But his efficiency went down drastically. Then his IQ was measured again because he was not able to function the way he used to function before accident. And after administration of intelligence test, it was found that his IQ remains intact. So his IQ did not go down because of accident. So how come his efficiency has gone down? Which means IQ, it is not only with the IQ, high IQ, we become very effective in our job. In our field, when we deal with an area called decision making. So in decision making and thinking and decision making, and as a scientist also, and as a teacher also, all the time, we have to encounter it. No, we encounter problem, academic problem, I'm saying, or research problem. So research or academic problem, and also in day-to-day life. Problems broadly are of two kinds. One is the well-defined problem. And what could be the example of well-defined problem? 2 into 2. So we have to apply an arithmetic logic and we get answer to this problem. So this problem is well defined and its answer is also well specified. And it is also known that if we follow a procedure, we will arrive at answer, solution. So this is meaning of well-defined problem. In academic life, 50% or maybe in normal academic life, normal teaching and research, we encounter well-defined problem. So we learn from our previous generation by reading book, by talking to them, by listening to their lecture. So in classroom or through book, what we learn? The procedure to solve a problem. But in a research setting, and it is not only for research, but I'm saying that a good teacher has to impart even research skill, and research process should not start only after completing MSc or BSc. I think research skill or research mindset should be inculcated in the mind at the school level also. So research is not only what we do as a researcher. Research is basically a mindset. I was talking about well-defined problem, and another category of problem is ill-defined problem. So in day-to-day life and in science also at the highest level, if you read autobiography or biography of Nobel laureate of any field, that for which problem they got Nobel Prize, what did they do? I think it is common about all Nobel laureates that the problem which they solved, there was no ready-made solution for that. It was unique problem and it was ill-defined. So there was not a procedure which a Nobel laureate had to learn and had to apply on the problem. It is a unique problem. I think for the first time he encountered, and nobody in the world had encountered this problem. So there is no evidence of such problem or anybody who has solved this problem. So it's a unique problem for the first time, ill-defined problem, and there is no right solution to this. So MCQ में क्या करते हैं हम लोग हैं? Out of 4, one alternative is correct. I think in real life situation and at highest level in science, we encounter ill-defined problem, and there is no single correct answer to that problem. Okay. So how to solve this kind of problem? This kind of problem can be solved only with the help of emotion. So let me come back to the executive who was treated by Antonio Damasio, and he has reported his finding. This executive, while he met with an accident and his brain got damaged, what portion got damaged? The limbic system. And in great way, it supports emotional capacity. So even after treatment, when his IQ was found to be same, which was before accident, But as a consequence of accident, his emotional capacity got down, reduced. And when somebody is occupying the position, very high position in any organization, whether you are scientist or leader, in our life, we have to deal with the ill-defined problem. So as an average scientist, you can discharge your duty by solving well-defined problem. Problem is already known, procedure is already known, it is reported in the textbook or journal article, and you have to learn and you have to apply it. But if you want to excel in your field, then you cannot rely on pre-tested formula. You have to inculcate, ijad karna hoga kahin se. And unless we have our emotional capacity, and this I have said on various fora, that nowhere in our education system, neither in school, at school level it is slightly better, but as we progress, we come to college and university and research level, there is hardly any focus on our emotional capacity. But in psychology nowadays, in psychology also it is very, very recent. We have started using this concept, emotional competency. So having capacity to experience emotion is also a kind of competence. And believe me, and it is reported in the literature, psychological literature, sometimes we call mentally challenged, somebody's IQ is less, we call mentally challenged. Now we use this term, emotionally challenged. So there may be university topper, gold medalist, but all university topper, gold medalists are not very effective scientists, not very successful. Because of their degree, they are made director or chairman or CEO, but they are not very successful. Why? Because this message has been given to us by our society and through various sources, that a serious person, an academic person, should be only logical and should not be emotional. And in our educational system, I said that at school level it is better, because in a good school, sometimes we have to participate in cultural activity, play. Now I have started realizing significance of all these extracurricular activities. Whatever we learn through this or by participating in extracurricular activity, it is not only for so-called personality development. It is also for our mental development. A person cannot become creative only by becoming logical and rational. I will repeat it. A person cannot become creative only by becoming logical and rational. He or she has to develop emotional competence simultaneously, and which is one of the most neglected aspect of human competence in entire education system. As I said, that teaching is basically interaction between two human beings. Some of you may have heard that we have now theory of intelligence. It's not now very new, because this theory came in 1983 by Howard Gardner, and it is called theory of multiple intelligences, in plural, multiple intelligences. So according to Howard Gardner, and who is one of the leading researcher in the field of intelligence, that human intelligence is not of one kind. First, he suggested there are 7 kinds of intelligence. Then he added one more kind of intelligence, and the research he is doing, I think two more kind of intelligence should be added to this list. So what are these intelligence? Our traditional understanding of intelligence is only one who can do mathematics well, no? Logical, mathematical. जो IIT crack कर गया वो बहुत intelligent. So Sachin Tendulkar is not intelligent because he is not even class 10 pass. Rabindranath Tagore studied only up to class 5. Munshi Premchand, the great Hindi writer, as long as mathematics was compulsory in UP board, Premchand could not do matriculation. Okay. So according to Gardner's theory, there is a linguistic intelligence. So Premchand had linguistic intelligence. And there would be many, good scientists and mathematicians would be very poor in appreciating even literature, leave alone writing a good story and poem. Then we have kinesthetic intelligence, those who have sense of bodily movement. So Sachin Tendulkar, a good dancer, classical dancer. To become a good dancer, one requires a kind of intelligence, no? The sense of rhythm, bodily movement. You are in the field of agriculture. So people having knowledge of flora and fauna. Many people who are not traditionally educated or schooled, maybe because of poverty, was in remote area. So tribal community. They have learned, they have acquired knowledge about their surrounding. My grandfather, who was not formally educated, and he never used any watch. But whenever we had to catch train, we had to rely on him only. Because he had a sense of time. And early morning train, we never missed because of our grandfather, who never used any watch. It is said that the more we depend upon some gadget, we lose our natural faculty. So nature has given us with some faculty. If you rely on some gadget, we are not using those faculty, and those faculty get weakened. So members from tribal community or other agricultural community, they have intelligence. But because of dominance of Western science, those kind of knowledge and those kind of intelligence are undermined, undervalued, and we do not consider them as intelligence. So intelligence are of many kinds. In that list, he says, yeah, please.
So I don't know how far it could stretch this notion of multiple intelligence. As we see, like cognitive intelligence, which is we could correlate with the mathematical intelligence. Is it in general is correct?
No, I'm saying that it is very limited notion of. It's not that it is not an intelligence, but this is not the only kind of intelligence. No, only kind of intelligence. And I will tell you that why we require other kind of intelligence. So two other kinds of intelligence which he has talked about, and that is related to being a good teacher, developing a pedagogical skill. Intrapersonal intelligence and interpersonal intelligence. You can note down intrapersonal intelligence and interpersonal intelligence. What is intrapersonal intelligence? It is about knowing one's own emotion and one's own feeling. You will be very surprised. You may sometimes laugh also. Why it is called intelligence? We all know about our own feeling. We all know about our belief system. But what does research suggest? Findings of research on human beings suggest that we do not know about ourselves sufficiently. And we do not know about our own emotion also, feeling also. In our society, in patriarchal society, if suppose a boy starts crying because of certain unfortunate incident, what is said? लड़के हो के भी रोते हो, लड़की की तरह रोते हो. So to cry is not considered a good quality for male. And what is the cry? Why do people cry? It is expression of powerful emotion. So according to my belief, I think women are fortunate that they are allowed to cry in society. So women in general, because of, so in our society, there is patriarchal value system and women are considered weaker sex, no, emotional, less rational. All these are no baseless things. But even because of this prejudice, no, there is a silver lining that they are more in touch with their own emotion as compared to male. Another finding that has come, yeah, please.
As far as I was knowing till now, emotional competencies or emotionals are like it's not inherited. It's like we are acquiring after that.
Yeah.
It's not inherited.
Definitely, you are right, 100% correct.
So how, like, if it is inherited and then it has.
It is not inherited, it is acquired.
So how, like, is there any way, like, we can develop that, or you are saying it is good thing, right? And
It
then
is
in
good
our
thing.
Society, like, differentiate, like, girls can be more emotional and boys, like, should not be.
Yeah.
So how, like, in what way we can develop that? Is there any?
So I will tell that, but first thing is that about emotional competence, it is not inborn. No, so we are not born in this world with a fixed amount of EQ. About IQ, although even that is being challenged nowadays in research, the dominant understanding about IQ is that you are born with a fixed amount of IQ. So either you are in high bracket of IQ or you are in you are a mediocre and you can't do anything. But about EQ, it is said, and right from the beginning, that this is acquired, this is learned, it is learnable. And that's why there is an importance of training. Through training, through other kind of activities, human beings' emotional competence can be enhanced. I said, although indirectly, that our school education system is better than college and university system education, because in school education, there is a component of extracurricular activities. You will remember, I think you will all agree with me, the friendship you have developed during school days, that bonding is much stronger than the friendship you have developed during college days and university days. Because at a school level, we are very, very innocent, no? And we are very transparent to one another, no? Even we fight very innocently and very authentically. But the more we grow, we become less authentic. And that's why there is less authenticity in, I'm not generalizing it, but more or less this trend has been found. Everybody says that, no, school days friendship, no, we can use anything, no, we can address our friend by any name, no, that may not be very acceptable things, but with friends you can. So your friendship is so genuine that your friend does not care what name you are using. So in school age, through this informal interaction with the peer group, then schools programs are structured and there is focus on sports, then extracurricular activities, and all these activities contribute to development of our emotional competence. But the more we grow, and at higher level, college level, university level, indirect or direct message is that what is important in life? The logical thing. You learn, always be involved with the books and research paper. This proverb was told to us, पढ़ोगे लिखोगे बनोगे नवाब, खेलोगे कूदोगे होगे खराब. Maybe sequence I have reversed. So to play, to spend time in sports is not a good thing. No? So minimize that, and you should focus more on your study. So that is a dominant message, and because of that, our emotional capacity gets compromised. But at highest level, and I was giving you that evidence by Antonio Damasio, that this gentleman who met with an accident, and even after being treated successfully, when he went back to his job, his efficiency went down because his part of brain that is responsible for emotional capacity got damaged. So if we want to deal with some complex issue, the ill-defined problem, so even in the field of science, when you are at the cutting edge of research, all novel fields are ill-defined. No, you don't have any precedence for that. Okay, so a person who is emotionally competent has high probability to solve ill-defined problem as compared to those who are only logical and rational. So this message I want to convey loud and clear here, that don't be under this false impression that to remain logical and emotional, so you should not enjoy Bollywood romantic movie. I think Bollywood romantic movie, or from any kind of movie, any song, any activity, any pastime activity that helps us to express our emotion and also to reflect on our emotional capacity is very good for us. It's good for our mental health. This research has been done on leaders of various. So leaders are of any kind. It can be even in the field of cricket. So we all know that Sachin Tendulkar as a player was far better than Mahendra Singh Dhoni. But as captain, he was nowhere close to Mahendra Singh Dhoni. What made Mahendra Singh Dhoni a better captain than Sachin Tendulkar? Those who take interest in cricket can reflect on that. Calm and composed. And who can remain calm and composed?
Emotionally strong.
Yes. Another thing is that, one has to be very secure from within, sense of security. Sachin Tendulkar was a perfectionist. And problem with the person who is very perfectionist is that cannot tolerate any kind of deviation. And I have heard this. Sachin Tendulkar himself is speaking in one of the interviews. Some of the players like Yuvraj Singh and other. So if Indian team used to win, they will go for party. Wine, champagne, everything. Sachin Tendulkar was a very disciplined person. If he has to sleep at 10 o'clock, he will be sleeping at 10 o'clock. He said that as long as I played cricket, I did not miss practice even a single day. He is such a serious cricketer. All the innings he played, he remembers which bowler took his wicket, in what manner he was out, how much he scored he has in a particular, for every inning, more than 500 innings. On which venue, which particular, can we remember? So he has one kind of extra talent, but he was very perfectionist, and he could not tolerate any kind of deviation. It is said the person who is very secure from within, no, does not get affected if somebody. So if Yuvraj Singh wants to go for party, it's okay. So Dhoni had no problem. Some player is doing masti in the field and could not take a catch. He's not very disturbed by that. So he will go and talk to him. But whereas Sachin Tendulkar will be so angry, even though he doesn't shout, but he will make it very clear from his body language that he is not happy. So a person at leadership role, no, at that position has to be very secure from within. And this sense of security we can enhance by enhancing our emotional capacity. So Sachin Tendulkar was too serious. And sometimes his seriousness used to affect his batting also. Whereas you will find Viren Sehwag, who used to play together. So even he is playing at 294, will make a triple century by scoring a six. Sachin Tendulkar could have never dared because he was very serious. If I get out in the process of his six. So this, look, one should be very carefree. So who can be carefree? One who is very secure from. It doesn't affect. So a scientist, one of my friend's friend is director, heading a Institute of Astronomy in Nainital. I am forgetting its name. Aries. I have met that gentleman. And my friend says that they were classmates in the school. He says that he was never a topper. He will get, he never scored in 90s. He will always score 75 to 80 at most. But it's not only he has become director, he is very, very successful. And all the teammates who work there, they're very happy with him. Why? Because even at this age, he plays cricket. And he does not mind going to party with his friends, even subordinates, sometimes with the drivers also. So he has capacity to crack joke with the driver, although he's holding a high position. But you will find some head of the institution will be very serious, that will be very, very careful about one's own image. So now choice is up to us, whether you want to manage your impression as a very, very serious person, or you want to enhance your creativity and you want to enhance your capacity as a teacher. So basically, because of the social pressure, because of the social custom, because of some kind of stereotype, we are not in touch with our own belief system and emotion. So these kinds of people have low level of intrapersonal intelligence. So if I take example of Sachin Tendulkar and Mahendra Singh Dhoni, I will say Dhoni was high on intrapersonal intelligence as compared to Sachin Tendulkar. Now let's come to other kind of interpersonal intelligence. That is very important for a teacher. And these two kinds of intelligence are related to one another. In fact, it is intrapersonal intelligence that contributes to interpersonal intelligence. What is interpersonal intelligence? Our ability to know others' emotion, to experience other emotion. You all have heard this English term, empathy. And empathy is different from sympathy. And what is empathy? Empathy is our ability to be in other shoes. So our ability to experience the emotion of other person the way he or she has been experiencing. it is very important for a leader to be successful to have interpersonal intelligence. So has an instinct, no, to know what other person is feeling. One can make out. आज तुम ठीक नहीं लग रहे? A person cannot become a good teacher if he or she does not have interpersonal intelligence. क्लास में आते के साथ और एक टीचर है कि अगर मान लो स्टूडेंट्स आर नॉट पेइंग अटेंशन, स्टार्ट शाउटिंग एंड स्कोल्डिंग, सब नालायक हो गए, कुछ नहीं कर रहे हो. You have let out your frustration, but is it helping the student? As a teacher, I said that it is always a challenge for us to bring backbencher to the front bench. How can we do that? Not by shouting, not by scolding, because they will get further demoralized. A teacher is like a leader. So I'm using the word leader. So all the time it is not only director or vice chancellor who are leader. Every teacher has to play a role of leader. And what is our role as a teacher? So I said that a teacher's job is much more than giving information and knowledge to students. I have also said that in present time, because of the technology, our students are capable of culling out information from various sources. So they do not require us for information. What do they require? Why? They require us because sometimes they are not very clear what they have to do. This is job of a mentor or a leader. Sometimes they are depressed or self-esteem goes down. Yeah, let me bring another concept, the two concepts, and it is very important for a teacher. Self-esteem and self-efficacy belief. Do we know self-esteem? What is self-esteem? It's very obvious that esteem in our own eyes, esteem about ourselves. So, are we able to respect ourselves? You have heard about depression. So one of important indication of, or sometimes maybe cause of depression is that person's self-esteem is very low. Okay. And it is also sometimes it does not make sense logically. A person who is very successful, I have seen, person who has become, by cracking civil services exam, has become an IPS officer and is very depressed. Whereas another person who has become a clerk and is very happy. Does it make sense logically? A person after becoming IPS officer is depressed. Another person by becoming a clerk is very, very happy. And his self-esteem is quite high. So human mind does not work logically all the time. Because a person has become depressed because by becoming IPS officer, because his target was to become IS. And he missed IS by few marks. So he thinks that his life has gone waste. Whereas a person who has become clerk, he had no hope of getting any government job. So now he is comparing himself with all other unemployed person. Sarkari naukri mili. Okay. Yeah, no. So self-esteem is a very complex thing, but we all have self-esteem, either high or low. And to maintain optimal level of self-esteem is very important for our day-to-day functioning and for our good health, good mental health. And mental health and physical health are closely related. There is a category of disease which we call psychophysiological disorder. Even cardiac problem is a psychophysiological disorder. Eczema psychophysiological disorder. So maintaining good mental health is very important. And self-esteem is one of the indication of our mental health. And self-esteem depends on many other things. A related concept, and that is very important thing for a teacher to know, and its importance also. Self-efficacy belief. And I will explain this concept. What is self-efficacy belief? Self-efficacy belief is a person's subjective estimate or evaluation about his or her competence. For example, I am studying in class 10. I am a class 10 student and I am studying mathematics also. So my subjective evaluation, my competence in mathematics, I can get 80 marks out of 100. Somebody will evaluate that I can get 95 out of. So this is what we call self-efficacy belief. You may say that it is subjective evaluation. So how does it matter? Research, series of research indicate that our actual performance in academics depends upon our self-efficacy belief. If our self-efficacy belief is low, it affects our academic performance adversely, and vice versa. If it is high, not only in the field of this is confined to academics, also it is confined to sports. So some of the gold medalists in Olympic, so you know that it is a very tough competition in Olympic at Olympic level. So those who are 100-meter sprinter, so difference between first and second is a fraction of second below. And these gold medalists have been interviewed by the researcher that what is the secret of your success? Because your computer was as competent you are. So in terms of competence and running capacity, there is hardly any difference. But you became a gold medalist, another got silver or less than silver. And consistent finding was that it was self-efficacy belief. But let me give you another information, and here lies the role of teacher. Self-efficacy belief is as fragile as glass object. You know, whenever a glass object is transported, so on carton it is written that it is a fragile matter handled with care. Our students whom we have to teach, everybody is required to have maintained optimal level of self-efficacy belief. But it is very fragile. It depends, one of the important source of self-efficacy belief is feedback from others. And who is most important in the life of a student? Teacher. And it's not only our verbal behavior, but our more non-verbal behavior that affects self-efficacy belief of our student. तो टीचर अगर क्लास में एक केवल फ्रंट बेंच से ही बात करते हैं, उसी से क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं, एंड बैक बेंचर से already assume they are of no worth and they have not come for study and will hardly fix eyes on the last bench. These are non-verbal cues to the students who are backbencher that I do not consider you a very good student. And this, no, so teacher has not done anything. Teacher cannot be sued for that. No action can be taken against teacher for not fixing his or her eyes on the student who is sitting on the last bench. But this behavior of teacher, and if it happens consistently, will lower down self-efficacy belief of student. As a teacher, even though we may be very evolved, but research has been conducted on students in American university. And students of African American origin report that in classroom, the teachers and most of the teachers, majority of the teachers are white. So these professors in a top Ivy League university, they will ask American student, white student about their study, what you want to do. And whenever they ask question from a student of African American origin, they will ask, what are you doing in athletics? Are you interested in some kind of dance? So it's non-academic. So one may say that it is very, very friendly. Professor is asking about extracurricular activity, but there is a pattern of interaction that white students are good for study, and that's why question is related to academics. And whereas non-white student is not so good in study, so their interaction revolves around non-academic issue. So as a teacher, and one very important psychologist, Sigmund Freud, he says that when our lips are tight, every pore of our body starts talking. So as a teacher, even if you don't speak, but our body is speaking to the student. And जो कहते हैं ना मन में जो है, so as a human being, we all have some kind of prejudice. The person who is giving lecture and knows the negative consequence of it, I have also some prejudice in that. And it's very difficult to keep your prejudice in check. Even I keep my lips tight, my body starts conveying my prejudice. This prejudice damages self-efficacy belief of students who belong to disadvantaged group. Now, I think one good thing that is happening in India, in our country, that students who belong to disadvantaged community and group, fortunately, they are coming. Of course, they are first generation student in university level. No, their parents have never come to university. Of course, grandparents did not come. So they are first generation. And so they have very harsh experience about reality. And in classroom, if teacher is not extra, I'm using this word, extra careful, student coming from disadvantaged background will get the message that this place does not belong to me. This research has been conducted at school level also, university level also, that what is the culture of academic institution, whether it is school or college or university. Predominantly, it is urban middle class culture. So those who come from rural background, those who come from tribal area, in our society, there is caste system and there is untouchability. There may not be very explicit untouchability, but even hidden kind of untouchability is still practiced. We have to be careful about the psychology of a student coming from this background. And unless we are extra careful, these students may not. So two of my PhD students have done research on this sense of belongingness in the academic institution. And findings of their studies clearly show that even this study was conducted in Delhi, where he said that in metropolitan city, caste system is not there. Caste system is only operative in rural area. But in metropolitan city, in a school setting, student coming from so-called lower caste, are not able to identify with this. Sense of belongingness is quite low. Even at university level, same finding has been reported. So one of important challenge and also goal of a teacher at any level should be to protect self-efficacy belief of a student. Okay. And as I said that a major source of self-efficacy belief is the feedback, and feedback from significant other. And who is significant other in the life of a student? It is teacher mostly. So now it is 3:30. So far it has remained a one-way traffic. I was talking all the time. So I would like you to speak, to share your understanding, your observation. And if you differ, you are welcome to differ from me. So sometime, and I will respond to that. So this session is not over. Only thing is that let there be a flow from other side. And it's because, yeah, please.
So you were mentioning that when someone is doing cognitive work and he is having emotional work, so he will outcome. So my question is that what actually emotional things are doing there and how?
What emotional thing is doing when we are doing some cognitive activity?
Yes, sir.
That is your, I said that brain functions in totality. So cognition and emotions, these two concepts for analytical purpose, we treat them separately, that these are two separate processes. But in reality, in the functioning of brain, emotion and cognition work in tandem. But because of belief systems that are prevalent in society, it is said that emotion is antagonistic to our cognitive activity. So even though emotional processes are on, but we do not pay attention to that. And we are very, very careful to our intellectual activity, cognitive activities only. So it's not that it is not there, it is there, but we do not recognize it. We do not want to pay attention to that. And this capacity is also not developed by training. So there is a training institute. So right now there is a training and I am highlighting importance of that. But I'm only giving lecture. If somebody comes from the background of theater or movie and can make you to do exercise, that how to express your emotion, how to understand your own emotion. There are nuances in our emotion. Many emotions are very, very mixed. So it's not very clear cut. So understanding emotion requires a different kind of logic. In fact, I will say that our too much reliance on intellectual activity and cognitive activity becomes or may become an obstacle in understanding our emotional logic. Emotion has, so let me quote a very famous mathematician come scientist, Blaise Pascal. Some of you may have heard his name. And he says that heart has also a logic which our logic does not understand. It is coming from one of the top mathematicians. So a poet or a painter, a musician, their emotional capacity is quite advanced. Who can write a good poem? It is. I'm not saying that about Einstein. I have read that he was a good, he used to play violin. So that capacity he had. Some of the scientists, they say that they got inspiration for science by reading a poem. And for understanding a poem, whether we require IQ, high IQ or high EQ. And it has been found that very sensible poem, very high level of poem cannot be understood only through mathematical and scientific logic. So, taking too much pride in scientific logic and scientist way of thinking is also not good. So, with all humility, I think I would like to convey to you that you should not overvalue your training in science. Yes, training in science is very important, but other kind of our abilities, which is traditionally not considered as scientific abilities, are also important for life and also for making breakthrough in science. So for making breakthrough, I don't know whether you have heard this name, Fritzo Capra. He is a very famous author. Fritzo Capra was a physicist. He did his PhD in high energy physics from some top American university. But after doing PhD, he read a book by the father of quantum physics, Werner Heisenberg, Physics and Philosophy. And after reading this book, he became very confused about physics. Whatever he read in physics, he thought that it is incomplete. And I have to get a better understanding about universe. And then he read scriptures and books from Eastern religion, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism. And he wrote a book which has become a bestseller, The Tao of Physics. I have read this book at least 6 times. A profound book. I'm a student of social science, but I have no difficulty in understanding it. And what is subtitle of this book? A parallel between findings of modern physics and Eastern mysticism. That is the theme of this book, The Tao of Physics. He wrote some more books, and title of one book is The Uncommon Wisdom. And how did he write this book? So he interviewed some leading person from various fields. So one of the Indian he has interviewed, Jiddu Krishnamurti, was a great philosopher, and Rishi Valley Public School. But from various part of the world. And what he found by conducting interview with these great people, so that's why title is Uncommon Wisdom. So their thinking is different from other kind of people. So they are not logical in conventional sense of the term, which does not mean they are illogical. So there is not one kind of logic. There are multiple kinds of logic. In science, unfortunately, only one kind of logic is considered logic. So let us recall quote from Blaise Pascal. Heart has also its own logic, which logic does not understand. What about the logic of heart? And logic of heart is not only for writing romantic poem, it is for doing a good science. And logic of heart is also for becoming a good teacher. So a good teacher should have understanding of logic of mind and logic of heart. In our educational system, the logic of heart is hardly recognized and given importance. And in the process, it gets suppressed. At most, it lives a life of secondary or second grade citizen. So in our hierarchy, the hierarchy this society has created, the cognitive logic is considered superior and logic of heart is given a secondary place. And this is not very good thing. I think both kind of logic should be given equal importance and there should be interaction between these two kinds of logic. So Einstein, in his advanced stage of life, he started repenting on the discovery he did. And he became great fan of Mahatma Gandhi. And he said, and it is his quote, that in the beginning of 20th century, when some of the scientists, especially Western scientists, were preparing how to destroy this world, atom bomb, there was a man, lean and thin, who was struggling how to protect this world. So Einstein had access to both kind of logic, logic of mind and logic of heart. So that's why he could understand the importance of Mahatma Gandhi. But you will find many people, they will segregate Mahatma Gandhi and science. Mahatma Gandhi is good for social work, but science is science. It was Einstein who could have a unified vision of science in which there was place for logic of heart. So can we have that unified logic of science, unified understanding of science where there is important place for logic of heart, which Blaise Pascal has also said. And only then we can become a good teacher. So a teacher's role is very, very important. It makes a life. No? This society depends upon a good teacher. So let's not reduce our job to be a transmitter of information. If we think teaching in terms of transmitting information will become outdated because AI and ChatGPT is going to make us irrelevant. Already it has put a great challenge to us. So we have to reinvent, rethink our job. And whatever AI can do, it can never replace a human being and human interaction. So let's recognize the importance of human interaction, and that constitutes main part of teaching. So that is what pedagogy is. Other question?
How we can improve emotional quotient?
How can we improve? So एक काम बॉलीवुड का रोमांटिक गाना जरूर सुनिए, अगर आप नहीं सुनते तो और सुनिए. Yeah.
From Tamil Nadu. So you will listen.
Oh, no, you have to know. So from your own, I think Tamil Nadu movie is very developed. I think now we enjoy. Yeah. So enjoy movie. No, enjoy movie. Read good novel. Good novel, good story, short story. So I do not know Bangla, but I enjoy reading Rabindranath Tagore's short story, master of short story. No? So you will get in touch with your own. When we know what is the importance of a good writer, although he or she deals with the emotion of the character, but indirectly you become touch with your own inner life. So we all have our inner life. Scientists, attention is directed towards external world. But what about our internal world? So it is musician, it is artist, it is poet. So they deal with our emotional and inner world. And unless, no, as long as there is a disconnect between inner world and the outer world, it is not good for society, it is not good for science also. Read, I think, interview and autobiography of Nobel laureate. No? Read about love affair of Nobel laureate. Yes. I think this aspect is less highlighted. Just read about either failure in love affair or success in love affair that was responsible for breakthrough in science. This you will get by reading their autobiography. So something which is not recognized as academic, let's broaden the scope of academic and science. So fiction, love affair, music, art, painting, all are part of science, all are part of knowledge. And that's how we can enhance our mental world. So mental world does not only consist of cognitive activity. Emotional activity is equally important constituent of our mental world. So these are the things. And if you are lucky or try to make effort to talk to some theater artists, how do they think? No? And pay attention to that when we talk to our fellow scientists, fellow researcher, and when I talk to some theater person or some story writer or songwriter, how do they think? Recently, somebody forwarded on WhatsApp interview of Gulzar. He's a great lyricist of Bollywood. I don't think even many top university professor can match his caliber. The metaphor he uses. And I have read about scientists that in science, breakthrough has been made with the help of metaphor. What is metaphor? Like, from my field, psychology, Sigmund Freud. So he was dealing with the mind and unconscious mind. So how did he define unconscious mind and how did he convey concept of unconscious mind? So he said that our mind is like iceberg. And iceberg, 1/10 of iceberg is above the surface of sea. And 9/10 of iceberg is below the surface. He says that our conscious mind is only 1/10. It's like the part of iceberg which is visible. But the rest of the mind, 9/10 is unconscious. So this capacity, so what is metaphor? To describe a thing which is abstract and which has not been described so far in terms of something which is already described. So iceberg is, we all know. So trying to understand the human mind by taking image of iceberg. In science, there has been breakthrough by thinking in terms of metaphor. You are a student of science, but in social science, whenever we read, it says there are two kinds of language. One is scientific language, another is metaphorical language. So poet, writer, they use metaphorical language, whereas scientists use exact kind of language. But metaphorical language, beauty is that metaphorical language is very rich in connotation. Rather, it is said, this expression is used, it leaks out meaning. So every word has multiple meaning. In science, we use word in a very, very rigid sense only. So a word has capacity to express more than one meaning. But in science, we use word only with one meaning. So what we do as a scientist, we impoverish a word. Word is already rich. It has more than one meaning. It has multiple meaning. But as a scientist, we only pay attention to one meaning of the word. And other meanings of the word are not paid attention to. So what we are doing in that process? We are impoverishing the word. Okay? So try to think like a, so poets are very good at that. So in your language also, whosoever is very famous poet, try to pay attention to the use of the word. They are genius. Sigmund Freud, since he's from my field, so I'm more familiar. Sorry for giving an example. Sigmund Freud was basically a neurophysiologist. He was not a psychologist because when he was studying, psychology subject was not a subject. Psychology became a subject in 1879. So Freud was a doctor basically, and his specialization was in neurology. But when he was doing his medicine, he also opted for 6 or 7 papers in philosophy. And he had keen interest in reading poetry, Goethe's poetry basically. So, and it is said that why Freud became very creative. Because for anything, any object in the world, in the nature, there are 2 representations of that object in his mind. One representation which scientists get, and another representation which, as a person who learns poetry or philosophy. So one thing he will understand in 2 ways. Now, and that was to his advantage. I will give you another example to make this point very, very clear. Our 2 eyes are separated by 65 millimeter. Okay? So if this object, mobile phone is there, so we see this mobile, how do we see it? So light is falling on it and this light gets reflected and enter into my both eyes. So an image of this object is formed on retina. So we have 2 eyes. So on retina, 2 images are formed. And since its angle with respect to both eyes are different, so 2 different kind of image would be formed on retina. This phenomenon, we call it retinal disparity. So basically one object which we see, 2 images are formed, 2 different images of same object are formed on our retina, which is discrepancy. The image that is formed on our retina is 2-dimensional in nature. So how come we are able to perceive 3rd dimension, depth, height? Because the image that is formed is only 2-dimensional. So theory of perception tells us that because of this disparity, 2 different images of the same object that gets formed on our retina, that helps us to perceive 3rd dimension. So disparity or some kind of difference in the image is not a cause of confusion. Rather, it enriches our understanding of phenomena. So science is not only about what we readily come to know or what we readily come to know through logic. About Einstein, it is said, and I think it is true, that he did not conduct experiment. Thought experiment all the time. And he was very, very intuitive also. So capacity of intuition. So first he gave theory of special relativity, but theory of special relativity had limited application, and he had to face embarrassment. He experienced embarrassment in presence of senior physicist of his time, sometimes from his own teacher also. And you know that he remained unemployed or underemployed for a long period of time after his PhD. Einstein was a clerk in a patent office. Whereas in 1904, he wrote 4 path-breaking papers published. And if you talk to any good physicist, they will say that each paper deserves one Nobel Prize. Path-breaking paper. And despite publishing such brilliant paper, he did not get a job. He was unemployed and he was rejected many times. Because he had an intuition and he said things in physics which nobody was ready to believe. And it took him, because theory of general theory of relativity was given in 1960 and special theory of relativity was given in 1905, 11 years. So for 11 years he was thinking about the logic just to convince. So Einstein was already convinced about the veracity of his theory, the truthfulness of his theory. And it is very interesting. A scientist, Eddington, you might be knowing his name, he produced empirical evidence in support of Einstein's theory of relativity. And he telephoned him, that Professor Einstein, now I have got evidence in support of your theory. So Einstein said, it does not matter. Even if your evidence does not support your theory, I would not have stopped believing in my own theory. So a great scientist like Einstein, he was not guided by so-called, I'm saying, scientific logic. Because this statement, if somebody says, you will say, this person is not scientific. If there is no evidence in support of your theory, then you should reject it. But he had a belief because of his intuitive understanding that whatever I say is correct. And another scientist who got Nobel Prize of Indian origin, Subramanian Chandrasekhar, who was nephew of Sir C.V. Raman. And after getting Nobel Prize, he wrote a book. And title of the book is Beauty and Truth, Role of Motivation and Aesthetics in Science. Aesthetics in Science, yeah. Aesthetics in Science. And in our scripture also, it is written, Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. So what is definition of truth? If it is not beautiful, it is not truth. So truth is beautiful and beautiful thing is truth. So at very high level of science, logic operates at this level. Not there has to be evidence. So intuition, the message from your heart are equal scientific evidence as you get from your experiment. So now time has come and we have to wind it up. So thank you for your patient listening.
If with more time, we have to go on listening to you. Excellent lecture, sir, and much thought-provoking. And I suppose the next lecture by Dr. Sharma is something related to that. Knowing is being.
Knowing is, oh, very great.
So it's just